about that. And but when I got there, they welcomed me like every new student should, and like it was really fun, and I never will forget it.
How about Matthew? You, Matthew.
Well, when I first came here, I was in 4th grade. Honestly, I thought first time in school in kindergarten was pretty fun, and when I kept on climbing up the ladder, it started to get difficult and stuff. But when I entered 5th grade, I was like, something changed. I don't know if it was the iPads, the PBL, because it was so fun.
Something different.
Yeah.
Well,
Ladies first.
well, I was really nervous, kind of scared it would be hard, and I was scared because like this was gonna be my first year in English classes, and I was afraid I was gonna get something wrong, or like right now I would say something the wrong way. But like after a while, I got comfortable, and I really didn't. I was like, wow, this isn't that hard, and I know a lot of people here, so it was really easy, and it was just a great year. And it was a lot of help having a really nice teachers to help me out through the year, so it wasn't as hard or as scary as I thought.
At the end of the year, I was actually sad for a change. Like, it was difficult in all seriousness, and like ever since 2nd grade, in kindergarten, preschool, kindergarten, and 1st grade, I thought it was all fun and games. Like, I thought school was all fun and games, but then 2nd grade, it got a lot more serious. And as I went up the ladder as I climbed up to 3rd grade, and then I switched schools over to Timberline, and I had a little more fun here still in 4th grade. And then, but at the end of this year, I'm sad because I'm leaving PBL and I'm leaving my awesome teachers. I'm leaving my school behind. I think that middle school would be a great experience for me, but I just want to stay here in 5th grade because we get so much else to do.
I kind of have to go along with what both of the Matthews have said. Like, not to throw anyone under the bus, but like all the other grades, as it went up further, it was getting like, it was more like the teacher would stand and talk, and I didn't really like that type of learning. It like kind of got me where I just like, I'd be listening, but I wasn't taking it in as much. And it was kind of boring. So when I got to 5th grade, I thought it was going to be even more of that. But then when I learned this new process, I learned that 5th grade was my favorite year. And it was my year that I learned the most. Because not only was I having fun in class, but I was also learning. And the learning actually meant something to me.
Well, it's kind of like Kyler said. In 4th grade, the teachers would just stand up at the board and talk, and we'd just be staring at the clock and be waiting, like once the day would be over. And then, like, when we came to 5th grade, like, I thought that it was going to be the same exact thing. We'd just be sitting there doing nothing while the teachers talk. But the teachers actually changed it a lot, and they made it fun, and they made it where we would actually learn something instead of just sitting there and doing nothing.
I've got another question for you. What kinds of thinking and and thinking skills did you have to utilize in PBL? And maybe Andre can start us off. What kind of thinking was involved?
It was like a multi-task thinking. Instead of just thinking about one thing, I was kind of thinking about two things at the same time, just to see if that strategy would work. But after a while, when some of my teachers would be like, "What kind of strategy is that?" And I started to work on their strategy. So I started to learn after a while, like weeks later. I started to learn a lot of strategies that helped me, like in the STAR test, it helped me like learn more instead of just having to be like, I don't know that.
Who else? Joseph? No? Okay, pass. Matthew's got some ideas on the subject.
Right, we use problem solving and skills and thinking. We use just about all of our skill sets that we've learned because we started out on the year with, in my homeroom, Miss Forshard's class, we had the iPads for the first part of the year, and then after Christmas was Miss Wilhelm's class started up on them. And so now both classes were doing PBL. But for the first part of the year, I was thought that, like, for a change, math class was actually really fun.
It definitely, you have to tool your brain to think about many things, because I remember me and Lance and Tanya, we had this big conversation about global warming and how that's affecting everyone. But so when we were talking about this conversation, like when somebody said something, it immediately, since with all the PBL, it immediately clicked to something. Like in that message, it like got us to where we could say, like, it just like, it's kind of like that light bulb that you see in cartoons, light bulb, and then when they have that idea, it's kind of like a light bulb, but it's not to hurt somebody.
So the question on how do you use multiple thinking on that, well, we had to come up with a few ideas on how you want to solve it, but we know from the start that a few of them aren't going to work at all. And you also have to use cooperation. We have rubrics, and you have grades for collaboration, and you have grades for like your presentation, because we have the iPads and we used Keynote. And we had grades for some other stuff. But you really had to have a group that you could collaborate with. If your group wasn't someone that you would work well with, it would be a disaster. Because people get put in the wrong group, they get mad and they fight, and you could definitely tell in the presentation if they were a good or a bad group. Like their presentation or how they explained it to people would show. Like people that worked really good would usually have an amazing presentation, but people that not so well, like they didn't get along very well, or they argued a lot, they would have a presentation that was kind of missing details and left off important information. So I think that groups are very important in the success of a PBL.
Let's talk some more about grading. You got one question here, Matthew. Talk a little bit about grading, how your teacher graded the project, and if this was similar to or different from the way you've been graded in the past.
They would grade us on participation, which that was a really big part of it. They would grade us on like how much you would work with your teammates. Like they didn't want you fighting, which I think in almost every group you had a little bit of a fight. But yeah, it's gonna happen.
Now, this is for you teachers. The grading process may sound long and boring, like sitting at home endless hours and grading stuff, like you always do. But still, I think that this grading process is easier because there's more things to grade on. So instead of doing a percentile in your head of everything and then doing one huge overall grade, you do one grade for each different thing, and then you add them up, and then you see what it is on a rubric, instead of like thinking in your head, maybe a piece of scrap paper and a pen. Instead of doing that, then you actually have multitude of things that you can grade, and then add that up to make it simpler for you guys.
Well, they used a rubric to grade our presentations, our work, which made it a lot easier because they would give us a copy of the rubric to help us in our presentation. And it told us what we had to place on our project to get a bigger grade. And well, they graded us because there was a lot different, because we knew what we had to have in our presentation to get a bigger grade, and that's.
And what Ms. Gorsher did is that at the beginning of the project, she had already done the rubric, so we could make our project to the standards of the rubric. So like we can say like, oh, we need, like, we can like go through that rubric ourselves in our group and just say, what did we miss, what did we get, and make sure and go through our presentations that it is all there. And it's different because the teacher, because in my 4th grade, only the teacher knew the answers, and if you got one wrong, it was minus points, like it's traditionally done. So my reading and writing and social studies, no, my reading and social studies teacher, she said on the weekends she'd have a glass of iced tea, her puppy dog right beside her, and a big, big stack of worksheet and papers to grade. So that's what she would do on the weekends, just grading and grading. And sometimes, and everybody does not want to grade on the weekends, I'm pretty sure. So.
I'm sure you'd all rather have much more important things.
Back to what Matthew had said at the start about the grading process. The grading process, part of the process of PPL is presenting it to the class. So you could have their rubrics when they're presenting, and you'd be watching from during the meeting, like during their collaboration, and you know if they weren't collaborating well because you get emails. And you could grade during their presentation based on their information and stuff, and you might even find something out yourself by going through their presentations. And I think it'll be interesting to see what everyone else had thought by doing this.
Okay, I have a question I'd like for all of you to consider and answer. Do you think that you will grow out of wanting to do PBL?
I think that I like to do PBL for the rest of my education because it just keeps growing and growing. I'm going to learn the deeper subjects even deeper. And so it's going to take me from learning the subject just, you know it by memory to knowing it by heart. And I don't think, and I actually think that this is a good thing, that everyone should be a part of this.
Pass it down to Andre and